Okay, so we've covered, a lot about the composition and the choices and the workflow. Um, we've kind of gone over the uh, key points in decision making. So at this point, I'm just gonna bring in a couple lights, and we're just going to take a quick look at how these shapes are playing together with light and shadow. And I mean, it's all well and good for us to be sort of looking at all this right now, as it is just in OpenGL, or DirectX, I guess would be more correct. And so what I'm going to do here is just going to go ahead and slap a turbo smooth on my level 1 selection and my level 2. Something that's really key when you're working with a project like this and a set like this is just overall scene management becomes pretty vital. I utilize um, a lot of layering, both on the erector set level and the composition level. Um, I also utilize a lot of selection sets as well, so that I make sure that when I need to get to certain things like my smoothing sets, it's like one quick selection in order to be able to get lots and lots of objects. Because you don't always have the luxury of being able to condense things down into one mesh. Sometimes you just have to leave things in multiple parts, and it starts getting pretty unruly. This scene has hundreds and hundreds of pieces in it, and the only way to really kind of make that easier on yourself is one, a strong naming convention, a good sense of organization, and also a good set of selection sets, like I was saying, and layers, lots and lots of layers. Okay, so we've got everything smoothed out, and we have a really, really basic three light setup going on in here right now. But I just kind of wanted to snap off a couple renders um, really quick to just sort of uh, give an impression of with the model, with the smoothing on it, the smoothing groups, the appropriate smoothing levels, just sort of the base cages we have, and what light and shadow is doing to the geometry. And right away you notice that, like, depending on whatever your lighting situation is, you can get away with all sorts of stuff. And, we've got stuff bearing, disappearing off into darkness, and various other things like that. Ultimately, I'm just doing this just to kind of show you what the mesh itself is doing and the level of smoothing and all that sort of stuff. So um, I'll be working out a lighting solution for the final rendered composition that will be happening when I do the texturing pass, which will be coming later, but not for this particular lesson. Um, so that is that. So at this point, this is as far as I got in the modeling process in order to hit my deadline for the masterclass. Um, all in totaled, I spent about 80 hours actual work time on the model throughout my various sessions, having recorded myself as I went for review and posterity. And, roughly at about 80 hours, at about 8 hours a work day, it breaks down to about 10 to 12 days, depending on how you look at it, um, which is, not too bad. Um, there was a lot of muddling on concept and playing around, and a lot of diminishing returns with the fact that I was working late at night. So um, there were places I could have streamlined the process. but ultimately, I feel like it was a good use of time, and the composition I'm pretty happy with, and the piece came together at times surprisingly, and at other times exactly how I planned it. In some ways, not at all, like anything I seem to work on. So it was a fun experience, and I like that the end result is both surprising and also deliberate. Um, I fully intend to, like I've said before, to do a texturing pass and a lighting pass on all this, and I'd like to take it to a finished composition with the introduction of the navigator herself and all the things that go with that. So what I would probably do at this point is start to work out a basic lighting study, figuring out an environment map and a couple, few lighting scenarios based around that environment map with some key lights. And once I had a ballpark of what I'd like to do with it, I'd take this into Photoshop and into the Cintiq and just paint over it, um, start applying color and treat it like a full-on concept painting. And I start to get into figuring out some of the nuances and the smaller details that perhaps have eluded me at this point, that I haven't even thought of. Smaller wires, gauges, anything that might have not made its way into the composition that would benefit to have them. Also working out maybe some of the decisions that right now I think work, but maybe when I'm looking back at it, we decide they don't work, and we're just gonna fine tune those and replace them. And I would like to go in and perhaps one off some of the duplicated things a little bit more if I felt it was necessary, maybe some of the monitors. Um, but mostly the concept will be to lock down sort of the expected path for texturing and the final mood of the whole thing, and of course the lighting study. Figuring out if the monitors do in fact throw light and how that interacts with the environment and what's really lighting the environment. Where are we really seeing the reveals, and where's the real shadow play coming from? And I know that I want it to be ultimately dark, fading off to an abyss, as we sort of have here, but not quite like this. But I want to have this mood of this dimly lit, sort of swamp-like type environment without obviously being a swamp, but sort of dim and gloomy, but ultimately comfortable somehow and full of life. Uh, so that would be where I would take it from there. So I'm hoping to proceed with this model, and I've really enjoyed the experience of putting it all together and being able to share it all with you guys. So I hope you feel that this was a fun experience, and I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you very much.